off to our bonus segment now. The Detroit Lions have a couple players that I'm looking forward to watching. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, we broke down the whole offense and defense on our podcast, Kings of the Jungle of Detroit Lions podcast, and you can get that on Apple and Spotify. So if you are new to the channel or you're new to this video and you don't realize that we have a podcast, and I'll put those links below and you can go listen to the episodes. So with the Detroit Lions, there's a couple players I'm looking forward to looking at. And here's my 5 players I'm looking forward to seeing in training camp, in the preseason. And I know the preseason is something that you don't take a lot out of because, obviously we've seen it before. There's preseason darlings that play really, really good in the preseason and they fade into the sunset when the regular season starts. But what I look for in preseason and training camp is this guy who's playing against the other one, the other first team, is he doing good? So here's the 5 players. Let's start with number 5. Number 5 is kind of an underrated one, but I'm looking kind of forward to Jafokuda. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he is able to do. Is he able to keep up with the wide receivers? I love to see him try to match with a guy like Amon St. Brown, maybe a Josh Reynolds, maybe DJ Chark, kind of see what he's capable of. Can he be a guy who can be counted on the outside? And can he be a cornerback that we can kind of trust? With his workout videos, he looked really, really good. He looked fantastic. But there's some things that I'm worried about with Jeff Okuda, but I have high hopes for him. I'm one of the few people who, listen, he got drafted into an awful situation. When you look at a guy like Jafokuda, imagine being drafted into a situation where Man Bear Pig, as we call him, Matt Patricia, is the coach of your team. And not good. I mean, Matt Patricia is probably one of the worst coaches in Detroit Lions history, and I don't think that's any overstatement. I really think that's the truth. Jeff Okuda is the guy I'm looking forward to. I want to see what he does, how he cuts, how he gets out of, situations that he kind of got beat in. And I just want to see what he can do because I think he was treading towards being good, but he got hurt early on. So I'm looking forward to seeing him because I think he can be a useful part of the defense if he is good. This 4th person is an underrated person, and if you are a Detroit Lions fan and you don't know who this guy is, I'm sure you will know who it is. It's Greg Bell. Greg Bell is the running back from San Diego State. If you watched him at San Diego State, man, was he a really good back. He checks all the boxes when you look at a guy like a running back, and when you look at depth for the running back, you got to look at Greg Bell. I mean, he was a 2-time All Mountain West, All Mountain West second team. He was very, very good. His senior year, he was fantastic. If you watch the games, he was a guy who can go through the tackles, make some great plays. He's a bigger back too. He's 6 foot 200, so he's got some size to him, and he's a guy who can really catch out of the backfield. His season statistics last year, 117 attempts, 637 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. He played in 7 games, so he basically was a touchdown guy. He's not a great receiver, but he's going to get you some really good play out of the way he plays. The 3rd person I'm looking forward to looking at, and this is kind of, again, an outlier, but if you're the Detroit Lions, you need a guy that can step up as your second tight end, and I'm looking for Devin Fontis. Devin Fontis, when he came out of Michigan, he was a really good player. He had issues that he had to work through. They transitioned to wide receiver when he went to Carolina. He's not a wide receiver. He's a big-bodied guy who doesn't have the speed to be a wide receiver in the NFL, but I think he could be a useful tight end. Can he be the second tight end to TJ Hawkinson? Because we know in the Dan Campbell offense, the Ben Johnson offense, you need a 2 tight end set. And if you're a tight end that can block and catch the ball, you're very, very useful in this offense. Second it's an easy one. Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle from Washington. When you look at Levi Enrique, there's games where he looked really, really stout, and there's games where he looked really, really bad. And if I'm looking for anything, I'm looking for him to just take the next step up. I'm looking for him to get better in the way he plays the game. I'm looking at him getting better in the way he gets out of blocks, and I'm looking for how he does with going against the first team of the Detroit Lions. I think that's going to happen, and I think that if he's going against a guy like Frank Ragnow or Jonah Jackson, two Pro Bowl type players, I think that'll elevate his game. And I think when you look at Levi Enrique, if he can be useful, the one place he's going to be useful is in the pass rush game. He's a very good pass rusher, not the greatest run stopper, but he'll get better at that. That's one of the players I look forward to, because if he's good, that defensive line could be really, really, really good. That leads me to my first person that I'm looking forward to seeing in training camp, seeing in the preseason, and that is Alim Mcneil. People forget this guy was a center field recruit for baseball. He was a lot of SEC programs that were looking at him. He's a big body, athletic. If you can play center field in baseball, you must be fast. So this is a guy who can get better as we go along. He's athletic as hell. He can make all the plays. He's Dan Campbell calls him the dancing bear. He's a guy who makes all the plays. When you watch NC State, he was a force. I want to see how he does against a first team offensive line. Going against like I said with Enrique, going against Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, Vaitai, that will raise your level. It's good for Aiden Hutchinson to go against Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker. It's very, very good because that'll help the defensive line. And the defensive line is really going to be the key for the defense this year for the Detroit Lions. Can they be formidable? And can Alim Mcneil kind of steal the thunder? Because if Alim Mcneil is good, what's going to happen is you can't double team everybody. And Alim Mcneil is going to command a double team because of how big he is and how fast he is and how explosive he is. That's going to be the biggest issue. And when you talk about football players, you talk about NFL players, the biggest thing is being explosive out of your break and getting into the backfield. And one of the things I like about Alim Mcneil is he is that guy. And I think that he could be a really stout player for the Detroit Lions. And if he is good, man, that will make that defense a lot better in 2022 with Aiden Hutchinson on the side. Charles Harris could be a really good situation for the Detroit Lions. So look forward to Greg Bell, Devin Fontis, Jafokuda, Levi Enrique, and Mr. Alim Mcneil. This has been the Kings of the Jungle podcast. If you're listening to YouTube, please subscribe to us on Spotify and Apple, and we will keep you in tune with everything that is Detroit Lions in the 2022 season. We will see you in the next podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm Joe Chap, and have a great night.